Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, it's all about the larches. Welcome in everyone to the Passive Solar Green Frame. This is a gray Monday indeed. The clouds thickened up and we've had rain for the last hour or so, and it's going to be raining through about 8, 9 o'clock this evening. So got off of work, and after a Monday at work, there's nothing better than working on some trees in the PSGF. So let's do that. My lights just turned off. There's going to be some on and off movement with the lights, and yeah, there you go. The more I move, the more we're illuminated. We're going to talk about larch today because, one, some of my trees are looking pretty magical still this late in November. It's the 18th today. We're going to do some work on some larches. So let's pull the first one up and get to work. The first one on the spin table for you all is a tree that means a lot to me. And it means a lot to me because there's a story behind this tree. And that's been some of the coolest parts of me on the road trip videos I've been making. The road trip for me met a lot of people and a lot of cool stories. And that's what bonsai is so cool about. And more as our country here in the United States get older and more experienced with these bonsai, we're going to have some trees that have come down through some generations and really have some great stories. This is a tree of my friend Dave Severson. The first larch is a tree that he used to own. Now, if you want to watch my interview with Dave Severson up in the Duluth, Minnesota area, check out the link that I'll put up here on the screen for you. So Dave Severson and I have only been friends for a couple of years, bumped into each other at a couple occasions, and it's like I've known him for such a long time. And that's what the great part about this bonsai community is. I just feel connected to everybody. So as I've always said, thanks to all of you again for watching, for commenting, for riding along with me or coming along on the road trip, which is still not over with yet. We've got more to come, more on that later. This tree has a story, which is why I like this tree so much. And the road trip, that was one of the key things that kept coming up for me, is seeing all these magnificent trees, some of them 400 years old. Some of them decades old, up to the hundreds, and there's a story behind them, like the Hiroshima tree. That survived that blast. Go check out those shows as well. Some of my road trip. Check the road trip playlist and you'll see some amazing trees and hear a couple stories about them. And so this was owned by Dave Severson. And then Candace owned this tree. And then I got this tree from Candace, and so now it's a part of my collection. So the stories in the Western bonsai now, the trees in Western culture here of the United States are starting to have more stories. And anywhere you see bonsai, there's probably a story about that tree. So it's really cool, and I feel very privileged to be able to work on a tree that so many hands have been on, especially my friend Dave and Candace. So I'm not going to do any major restyling to this tree today. I'm just going to cut off some of the obvious. And so this time of year when all the leaves are gone, the foliage, it's really good time to come in here and to find out what's just not going to work for the design of this tree. Now, this is not the front of the tree, I don't believe, because it's planted so far in the front of the pot, right? So I must envision this as the front of this tree for at least this iteration. A little bit of dead wood right here that we can see in the front. And we have a little bit of growth on top. So apical dominance, and it grew up here. Didn't put a lot of growth down here, but we're gonna go ahead and cut these shorter. So a lot of times in our trees, we're talking about having some pads. Here's a pad right here, a little pad right here. We stepped up to a pad here. There's a pad right here, and this is where the windswept look kind of comes right in here, and these guys over here, and this is coming over there. So we still could make this a windswept tree for sure. But these are growing up, and so we could leave them longer and put them out here for that longer windswept, or we can just go ahead and we can cut these back. Cut them back to another bud back there. More buds will grow next year. Now these have some buds on there, and they're growing this way. We'll leave those alone. So that right there, plus this guy back here, now we have this pad kind of cleaned up. Now this one's getting a little long, and it's going to maybe cover this pad a little bit, and this is getting a little bit thicker right here. So I can either leave it alone or bring it down a little bit. And if I bring it down, there's a section right here with some branches right there, and there's a section right there with some branches. I could cut that down to make this a little more balanced. It's coming up and over, but I like it so far. I'm not going to mess with it too much. We'll trim this back over here, trim this back a little bit more here and here. We've just cleaned up this pad just a little bit. There was such little growth on this part of the tree this year, I don't want to worry about it. I want to see what happens next year. The only thing I will say about this section of the tree is this right here is getting a little thick and chunky right here. So again, there were 3 branches here, 3 branches here, a couple branches here. This is getting a little thicker. We may want to cut that back at some point. And so I have this branch right here that's growing right there. So if this branch kind of curves out to the window of my PSGF, comes back towards me, and we go back this way, that's some fun movement. And this thick branch right here is maybe just a little bit too thick. So as we come closer and I put my hand up here, here's a branch that's coming out in the front. This one swoops more to the left, and then we have this nice split here and a great bit of ramification right there. But look at right here. So this branch right here is the real thick one. Now it comes up towards the camera, but this is like getting a little bit thick out here and chunky. My light keeps moving off because I'm not moving around enough. And so this one's a little bit thick right here. So I'm thinking about maybe cutting that one back a little bit because we're going to have reverse taper if this one's too thick. So if I cut it back here, maybe I can let this branch right here grow. So let's do that today. Let's go ahead and let's cut this back right here, right there. So I just cut off this branch right here that was coming more up, and it was getting thick down here. So we'll leave this little section right here to maybe bloom and kind of come this way, and we can encourage this branch over here, and we still have ramification. But you see how much thicker this branch is than this branch? So we have thick to a little bit thinner to thinner here, but not here. So we still may have to cut this whole thick branch off here in the near future. I moved the camera over a little bit to the left. I'm noticing how dark it is in here. My apologies for that, but there's the branch right there. That was getting kind of thick right there. This is a lot thinner right here, so we're going to make sure that we slow this down so we have 2 smaller branches here. Thick here, thinner there, and thinnest out at the tips. Back out front, here's the branch I just cut back a little bit. It was up to about here. We cut it back for this thinner section right here, so it'll slow this thickness right here. One of the troubles you have with larches is they can get really thick really fast. So for this not to get fatter in the future, we should probably thin out some of these branches here. So if I thin out this crossing branch right here, if I shorten this here, and take off this crossing branch right here, and shorten this, I just thinned out all of that right there to make a nice little pad that's not as thick. And this is actually crossing over too, so let's get rid of that one. Do we see how nice and thin that is now? And now we even have a little bit of possible crossing there. We'll leave it for now. Right there is nice and clean, and that won't get that area all thick. We also have a branch that's going back towards the tree back here. I'm just going to cut that off, and I'm going to shorten this one right here. So there's part of our pad cleaned up, and here's, this pad has a branch growing down, so we're going to cut that pad off, or that branch off, to make this pad more just one section right here. We'll leave this alone, and now we'll leave what we cut there. So that branch right there is pretty darn nice and cleaned up. This one's pretty nice too. It's a little bit thicker in the middle, so let's cut that middle one off right there. And when we cut that middle one off, now we have thick to thinner to thinnest right here, and this will keep going out here and have thinner out here, and that's going to be the silhouette of this tree. This one's going more straight up. We'll leave that alone. This one's kind of shooting down a little bit. We're going to have some more growth out here for that pad. So this branch right here is all cleaned up. This branch here, I said we're going to leave those up there. We just cut these a little bit shorter earlier, so that's going to be fine right there. As we go over here now to this side, we again have some thicker branches up here. Look, we have thick to thinner to thinnest, and then it just sits out here. We'll cut it one more branch back. We're going to see if we're going to continue that, that wind-blown look back towards this direction. So I'm not going to do a whole lot of trimming right here, just a little bit shorter on some of these branches. This is fine as well. So here's the top of the tree. We got this branch that's going back towards the tree. We're going to cut that right off, all of that right here, and cut this shorter. There we go. We'll leave that alone for next year. This one's coming out at us and more at the front towards the camera instead of the back. We're just going to go back to a couple of buds there and see where that grows. We have a branch down below that we might be able to go to, and as a matter of fact, let's do that. So this branch up here is getting a little bit thick up here at the apex, right? But there's a nice branch down here growing that's smaller, so we're going to cut this thick part off right up here. Now we have thicker to thinner right here, and then we'll get the thinnest at the edge after it grows out. So we're going to cut that off, get that thinner looking, and we have some nice movement here. And this is the top of the tree. We don't want it any thicker than this branch here. And this branch here is thicker than this one already, so we have to slow that down and be careful of that one. This one's coming at us. I'm just going to cut it off right here so we can highlight the bend back here. This is growing up, and we're going to cut this shorter. So that's those branches right here. We've got one that's just deep back over here. This one's too far over here. This is going straight up. This is basically going up and back. This one's too long. This one's too long. Now we just cleaned off this whole section right here. So this pad is looking pretty nice. We've got some long growth here, and some long growth here. How about some long growth here, here, and here, as the lights keep going on and off. As I step back, take a look at this, we've got the apex left. So which way is this tree going to grow? So if this is the tree, which one of these three do we want this to grow? Well, it's windswept, right? So if we keep this windswept, we have to go like that. Everything's blowing this way. So we have to work on what these branches might do. We're just going to cut this one a little bit shorter and a little bit shorter. This is the apex after all. And we'll see where those leaves and foliage take us next year. And we still have kind of a conical shape here. I could bring this one in a little bit shorter. Let's cut out this thick branch right here, right there. And now we have a little bit less thickness right there. We have a nice little step of branches here looking pretty nice. It's cleaned up. We're in good shape. If I take this one back right here, let's do that, make it a little bit thinner. We got that one gone. We're going to have to consider what we'll do with these branches if we want this to be windswept. Everything's growing this way. I like that, but we're going to leave that right there for the rest of this winter here in the PSGF. Let's give it a 360 spin after we worked on this larch from Dave Severson and Candace. And who knows what we'll do with this tree in the future. I will not repot this next year. I'll wait another year, and then we'll find maybe the next new generation of pots for this guy, and we'll see where we take it. Maybe we slant it a little bit more, maybe we slant it a little bit less to get that windswept. Maybe we change the whole front of the tree. You know, we're going to spin that around and look at it several times before we do a lot of work on it next time. Tree number one, larch number one. Let's move on. Do you recognize larch number two? Let me give it a spin for you. It's got a beautiful color still here on the 18th of November. And we've got a forest in an oval pot. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trees in this forest. Does anybody recognize it? Going once, going twice. Who said that it is the logo forest for Bonsai Acres? Looking very lovely here on a nice gray afternoon. Nice color. We're not going to do a whole lot to this tree because it's young, but we're going to see if there's a couple things we can manipulate with this tree before we call this one a day. So this is the front of the tree in my logo. I think there's a couple 2, 3 trees over here and a couple 3, 4 trees over here. It's very similar to the, I think I had another tree in here that did die off. But we have a pretty strong tree. We still have even some slight green in the tips. This one's far from just completely dropping its leaves. As you can see, as I go like this with my chopstick, the leaves are not all fallen off yet. So I'm not going to force the issue, but I'm going to see if there's anything we can cut right now in this tree as we look at the forest. So this one's coming at us a little bit sharply. Let's just cut this one off a little bit more here. And we're going to cut this one down a little bit back here so we can see that tree. And of course, this becomes real thick up top. Again, the top parts of your larch tree can give you the most trouble because that will get thick and clunky if we don't keep them nice and trimmed. So this one's kind of coming at us. I'm going to take that one off. We got a thin top right here. We'll cut this back here and there. We have a thin tree. We're going to cut that off too back here and here because again, that tree right there, we want some apical shape right there and conical shape that's going to be nice and triangular and skinny and tall as is on the logo. This one out here is getting a little bit long. We'll cut that one. This tree right here, I'll just leave it right there. Now this tree right here, pretty big robust tree on the left side. This branch is getting tall and leggy right there. We've got this one reaching for the sky as well. So this could be the new apex of this tree and not this one. It's pretty long and leggy, but we could just chop this one here. And there's new buds right back there that we can see that next time. We got a really big branch growing back here, so we'll cut that off. So we're going to cut this a little bit shorter, cut this a little bit shorter. This has got a nice branch. This is still a little bit too long. We got buds back there and there. And this is too long here as well. Yeah, so we're gonna have to pick one of these two branches, and I think this is coming at us, so let's just get rid of it. And there's our tree. We'll even go back one more section, and we got new buds there that's gonna grow for us next season. A little long in front going at us, a little long in our face, in our face, in our face. We cut a couple of these back throughout the tree, and we've got a nice tree now that's a little bit thinner on the bottom, so we continue to thin this guy out so we have more of that conical shape, and it'll continue to push upwards and grow next season. And we'll keep trimming it. So that one has a little bit more of a nice conical shape here now. A little bit of, oh, look at that big growth back there that went to the back. There we go. So we have a nice tree right there. This one in the back looks like it's lost all its leaves already. There's still plenty of buds there. I think they're viable buds. We'll just make a couple trim marks. Maybe this tree is on the outs. I'm not sure. Nope, looks like we've got viable branches there, so that's good. We'll cut off some of these longer branches up top. This is a 3-1, so we'll cut down to 2. Super long, super long. That's a tree in the background that we just don't need real thick up top. Let's, as a matter of fact, cut that off there. Cut this thick part off right there. And there we go. We just cut that down to size right back there. Harder to see, but you see that one now? Nice and thin. There's a couple of thick branches again down here trying to be big. We don't want any of that big stuff overlapping. And yeah, we clean up that tree, and that one's looking pretty good too. So that one's lost most of its leaves, right? So we've got these 3 trees nice and cleaned up there. We've got kind of the peak of our tree here. I'm going to cut this one down in shape over here a little bit and get this one a little bit shorter in the back. So it looks like we have this one as kind of our main part of our tree forest right here. But let's get this side next. So you come around to the back. Oh, here's another tree that was kind of lost in the shuffle. It's a super tiny one. We'll cut that branch going towards the front right there. And we'll leave these for next year to keep getting taller. And it's just kind of a low underbrush tree. Again, we're going to cut some of these branches coming at us a little bit. These are getting a little bit long. This one's coming at a weird angle. We'll cut this one on the right so we can see the branches coming off to the left. I actually like the smaller one, so we'll cut that bigger one off. We'll cut this one down to size, making that conical shape all the way down the tree. This one again has maybe 3 branches there. We'll cut down to 2. And they're starting to lose some of the leaves here. This one again is a little bit long. That is the bottom of the tree though, and it's nice and thick on this side. So there's our tree back there that's really skinny. We'll let that one go. We've cut this one down to a more conical shape now as well. We'll cut these one more scotch shorter. And there we have another tree on this side doing really well. I'm actually going to cut this part of the apex off right here and go for one branch, kind of leaning this way a little bit. And we'll shorten it one more time. And there we have our tree. So we have a little bit of a shape that way. And now this way. And again, this is a young forest. I'm trying to cut some very typical branches off to get that conical shape. Get some thinness in some of these top tips of the tree so we're not getting too thick and bulky for the future. And so we're making all these trees a little bit smaller. Branches that come towards me here. Which ones do I want to go for the leader of the tree? How far back am I going to cut these? Trying to get a resemblance of a conical shape and getting smaller as we go to the top. And then if there's 2s or 3s rather, we're cutting down to 2s. And then branches that are growing inward, we might cut out completely. See these 2 right here, cross right here. There's this branch and this branch down here. I'm going to cut that one entirely off or back here and then cut that shorter. Now back here, there's a lot of branch going on right here. I'm just going to thin that out right here and here. That thins that out. Cut off this tip right here. Cut off this one coming at us. Now you can see the trunk of that tree a little bit more. We'll actually cut this branch right there as well, so the tree's going out more to the right. Good, and we got a couple of thin wannabes right there. That making a big difference in this tree, being able to see some of that. And we'll just shorten these up. There we go. So then that back one's not as forward in our face. Now this tree and the back tree have kind of a nice symbiotic relationship. They're very close together, so some of these branches might not grow as long because of the way they're shading each other out. So I can thin out some of this side of the branching if we can. There we go. And so that'll lead that on a nice path next year where some of these branches will not crisscross. There we go. So we have the forest, the logo forest, kind of cleaned up a little bit, right? And we're going to go ahead and we're going to get some of this, these clippings. I love these clippings on the ground. It reminds me of a hunting trip I took with my dad years ago. I got out of my deer stand and went for a walk, and I sat in a pine grove, and it was all pine needles and super quiet. And so there's a little bit of a cleanup there of that. We'll do a better cleanup job when we start setting this PSGF up for the winter months, which we're still a little ahead of the game there. Most things are still outside on the benches. I missed a big branch coming way out here. This one's still a little long up there. There we go. I think this one's a little bit too robust on this guy right there. There we go. A little shorter, that's facing us. All right. What is everybody telling me to do out there, everybody? Put the scissors down. All right. A little thick one right there and a little bit long right there. Okay. Here we go. There, the scissors is down, everybody. Let's do a 360, okay? There is the logo forest. And we'll give it a little 360 from the right side. From the back. Oh, I have to pick up the scissors, everybody. That's just a little too tall and obnoxious. There we go. Sorry about that. There we go. That's the left side. And back to the front of this forest of the Bonsai Acres logo. I'll see if I can put that logo up on the screen for you so you can see kind of how this is coming out. The Bonsai Acres logo forest. And the final larch tree that we're going to work on today is the big discount larch I found at my favorite discount nursery. So what I love about this tree is it just has that subtle curve down at the bottom. I'm starting to get a little bit of a flare down here at the Nabari. And this was a $25 tree that in the normal price range with the size of this tree, oh, there's a broken gin right there. So it's natural. It got broken off by me. But this was a $25 tree, probably a $100 tree when it was trying to be sold originally. So I got this at a super steal. And with a Peter T workshop a while back, I put this into some gin like it broke off with lightning or whatever, it broke off. And now this branch up here is going to maybe try to be the new apex of this tree. So you can go and check the playlist of this guy as well. And it's my larch collections. And we have a couple of really nice branches out here. Now this is a pretty nice view of the tree, but you don't see the curve at the bottom. So this is one of those situations where this front doesn't show as good of a tree with an angle. It shows more of a formal upright. This is not meant to be a formal upright. So we're going to be having this tree probably go out like this at some point. And then this is hidden a little bit more. So if I have this over here, we can have our tree. The other possible way is right here. This has a nice angle right here, but this branch is right in front of us. So again, this tree has branches that are growing straight up and just getting a little long and leggy. Now we can keep these longer. Peter T and I chopped all these back to stubs at one point, and now they have all this growth on there. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut some of these back. And we're going to make these shorter and get some of the ones going up. This is an apex of a tree. I want this shorter. I don't think I'm going to want all of those branches anyway. And we can cut that off and cut that off for sure. Yeah, what are we going to do with this tree? Eventually, I think I will probably start wiring this tree. I might do that in another month or so. Might be some winter work. And I'm going to wire these branches and continue the pattern of going down. This branch right here was wired down, but it's popped back up a little bit. We're going to have a little bit more of that alpine-y look with these trees, this tree rather, and have it go down like this. And so all of these will come down and have that kind of swooping alpine-y look. That's the goal. So if that happens, this branch will come way down here, so I have to be careful what I cut. But it's got a beautiful branch right there, so I'm just going to cut this whole thing off right here. And this one I'll just cut shorter and shorter and shorter. This one's going up, so I'll cut that off. And we've got this guy right here. This pad right here can come sit right down here. And if I keep my tree this way and show some curve, I'll want this one to get out of our vision. So we're going to cut this branch right off there, and we're going to be able to see the curve of our tree. So we'll leave this right here right now, and we'll see how this shoots up some growth next year. And again, I may wire this sometime this winter. So that one's nice and flat. We'll get this one shorter so it can back bud and set out more growth there. This one's straight up in the air. This one's going back. Here's the other pad right here. It's got a nice ramification into threes right here. it goes to 2, and then it goes to 2 right here. We'll cut this downward branch off, and there, that's cleaned up. So this section right here is nice and clean. This is coming up, so let's just kind of cut this off for right now. We've got 2 new branches going this way and this way. We'll see what happens. We'll cut this off up here and here and see what grows back in the next growing season right there. We've got a branch up here. It's growing back a little bit. This one's growing way back. Let's just cut that down and down and down, shorter and shorter. We'll see what that does next year. And this one's kind of up on the branch. We'll cut it back, we'll cut it back, we'll cut it back. So now this is shorter than this. That means this has to get back really short, right in there. This one has to come back short as well. And these are all branches that are thick up here and going to get thinner, but this is too thick for these, so this has to slow down. We took out the bar branch before to make that. Let's make that thinner right there and there. And let's make that thinner right there and there. So again, this is going to slow the girth up here down. This is a pretty thick branch up here. That's where we nubbed it before, but that's still pretty thick now, so we want to slow all that down. I probably should have trimmed more of that this growing season because we want this to have nice ramification, but I don't want that to get too much thicker. We're going to cut this off right here and here. Got this branch coming down this way. This one's going up. Let's cut that off. This is a little bit too tall again, and right there. So this was a stub right here, everybody. There's my cut point right there. That's the stub. And we got 1, 2, 3. We have a nice split. It splits back here, then up here, and we have this nice pad taking shape right in here. We can cut this tall one out here, cut that off for more growth, and we can even cut that one back a little bit. We have a nice pad right here. This is a little bit long. Again, this is a little bit long. This is shooting straight up. Let's take that off. Let's let that branch go right there. And we got a couple of squirrely birds up here. Holy cow, long and squirrely. Look at that tree we just cut up a little bit, huh? All right, let's get this a little bit shorter. This is coming from way inside that branch. I'm going to cut it way shorter and see what we get for back budding right there. This one's big as well. We'll cut that back. We'll cut this off because it's at the top. And we're going to see where this growth takes off. These are both hanging down. Let's just cut those off. This one's hanging down. There we go. So we cut this one down quite a lot. Now this is a really big branch. This is the first primary branch. These all should be similar thickness, so we kind of slow this guy down a little bit here to let this guy catch up over here. But now that's caught up in thickness, so we can go ahead and cut this girth off right here. Let's cut this girth off right there. That was the last chop. Now we're cutting it off there, and we're going to hope that this continues to separate and back bud back here, and we'll get some ramification way back here. So we'll cut that off for this season and see what happens for next right there. And if this is the curve in the end, this is a little bit out front, so of course we would be able to bend this with some wiring this fall and maybe get this back out of the way. The other possible front is something over here, but then this one's in the way. So we have to figure out that movement of this branch to get it out of our way a little bit more, to show off the curve of this branch at the bottom a little bit better. And even if this branch stays this high, we can see the curve down below it, so maybe this branch could go over more this way. But then we don't like that right at us with a split that way. That's going to be a little not so great either. This one's coming in towards that tree a little bit more. We're going to cut that one completely off actually and let that one do some new shoots. Now the only thing I haven't done up here, let's cut off the thickness of this guy right here. Let's cut off this a little bit here because that's the tip of the tree. Should be small, shouldn't be so thick. We'll slow that guy down. This right here, the new apex of this tree. So what are we going to do? Do we bring it back over here? It's kind of a sharp curve. Let's cut this a little bit shorter for right now. I don't know what it's going to do next year. This could end up being the apex right here. It goes up like this. It's a little bit sharp of an angle, but that could straighten out in time. Or we just leave this like this. So we're going to leave that for right now and just maybe shorten this right here. And we'll see what happens. Put the scissors down, Dave. Put the scissors down. So there is the $25 discount Larch. That was a steal of a deal when I got it. Again, well over $100 tree when it was normally priced. And I don't know if there was a crack in the top or the reason why I got it, and I just added to that, or what the deal was. But we got a little gin here. This is a little bit straight out to the right. I don't like how 90 degree it is. But there is the larch kind of cleaned up. We still want this to grow really thick next year to get these branches really thick so these don't overpower these. But I've got some decent spacing on this tree, and this has got some potential. This is even a fine, I just love this front the most, I think. So that front right there might be the winner. And again, we can move some branches aside. But branches go all the way around this tree, so I like it from a lot of different angles. So there you go. Boy, does it get dark in the late fall, pre-winter. The winter solstice is a little over 4 weeks away, and then light slowly gets brighter and brighter, but very slowly in December and January. But it is exciting to think about. So we are done working on the larch today. It's been super fun. I love the color that's still on the larch this time of year. Such beautiful trees. So fantastic. I love the bonsai community. I say it all the time. And my Dave Severson tree we worked on today, the logo tree we worked on today, and this gem, which is one of my bigger trees in the collection. We're going to get this into a nice bonsai pot, hopefully a Sarah Rayner pot. I love her pots. We'll get this in a Sarah Rayner next year. It'll really show off this tree a lot better than this big box. So this will be a nice repot for the spring. So fun. So fun to share the stories. And if you have a story to share me about your tree, there's going to be a chance for you to do that in the new season of Dave's Bonsai. So stay tuned for that. There's something new that I'm doing for 2025. Some of you know what I'm talking about. The rest of you are going to have to wait just a little bit longer. We'll kick off the 7th season on the winter solstice in December. So that is just around the corner, as I mentioned. Hey, until we tell you about all those things and work on new trees and continue the road trip, we still have Michigan to visit. That's coming up next. We're going to meet Jack Sustick in a little while. I'm editing that video right now. And until all those wonderful videos, well, I hope they're wonderful for you. Thanks for watching. Take care of you. Take care of your bonsai. And we'll catch you on the next one.